Once in a blue moon, a generational film will pop up from out of nowhere and take the reins of film discourse for the year and onwards. A film that reaches every type of audience member, from casual viewer to art house aficionado to the pickiest of consumer. A film that breaks every rule and boundary that has been set before it, only to create brand new boundaries that will eventually become the new standards for the medium. A film that even your friend who doesn't watch anything that you don't drag them to will be talking your ear off about. A film that is inescapable to the point where even your grandparents are asking you if you've seen it, while unabashedly butchering the title, bless their souls. A film that builds its gravitas within pop culture with immediacy and won't let go of your attention until you've seen it for yourself, with the stipulation that you haven't already seen it at the beginning of the hype train. Think about all the group conversations you'd be missing, the bountiful amount of think pieces on YouTube that you'd have to push off until you actually watched it, the personality traits you directly absorb from the film and make part of your identity. I mean, being a holdout on watching it is the second worst thing that you can possibly do, only superseded by the ultimate 4-word sin. I didn't like it.
It's me. Hi, I'm the problem, it's me.
Hi everyone, my name is Colin Andrews. Welcome to Colin's Corner on Film Tape, the only show on the internet where we watch a lot of things and talk about them afterwards. So as my previous monologue should tell you, I am not a big fan of a fan favorite this year. A film that has taken the nation by storm, that everybody is talking about or has been talking about for practically the past year or so. And that is Everything Everywhere All at Once. Don't get me wrong, I think that the film is good. I enjoy the movie. In fact, I would give it a 6 out of 10. But do I think it's as good as everyone else does? Not even remotely close. So what we are going to be doing today is we are going to be watching Everything Everywhere All at Once for 24 hours straight. So how am I going to do this? Well, there are 8 3-hour blocks in a day. 8 times 3 is 24. You know simple math. You don't need me to be telling you this, but I'm telling you it anyway. So in those 3-hour blocks, I'm going to be watching the film one time because it is 2 hours and 20 minutes, give or take credits. I will be watching it. It'll be good. It'll be fun. And then the 40 minutes after that, I'm going to be taking to review the movie because I do need to review the film. Otherwise, the purpose of this video it just won't come to fruition, which I guess I've kind of told you it, but I don't think I've really expanded into what I want to do. Everybody always says, hey, you know what? You can't really have a dialogue or a masterful understanding of a film until you've seen it multiple times. What about 8? One for my first viewing, and then 7 times in 24 hours, I will be watching Everything Everywhere All at Once. And now if you do the math right, you said, hey, there's 8 3-hour blocks. I need rest. I need to eat food. I need to do basic human things. I need to use the restroom. And maybe, hypothetically, an hour nap possibly would be in the cards for me. It's 11:48 a.m. It will be starting at 12 p.m. and today is January 6th, I believe. It's January 6th. So from 12 p.m. to January 6th to 12 p.m. January 7th, I will be everything, everywhere, all at oncing it up completely. I'm so excited for you to follow along on this journey with me. I am gonna finish this recording and get it set up upstairs for my first viewing of the film. We are gonna go watch it and I will report back to you afterwards on whether it can move up from the 6 or maybe it will move down. I have a feeling. Prediction. Let's do a couple of predictions. I know I'm all over the place, but this is my first video of this type, so you have to forgive me a little bit. My prediction is that I will gain in the first couple viewings more of an understanding of the film and therefore more of a positive reaction to it. I would think, I don't think it'll get over an 8 for me, but I think I will genuinely enjoy it more and appreciate the intricacies, even though I don't think the intricacies are as intricate as many others do on the websites like Letterboxd or IMDb or anything like that, or even on this website itself. So yeah, I'm excited. Let's do it. Let's get to it. Can the film Everything Everywhere All at Once turn a hater into a lover is what we are about to find out. All right, everyone, it is 2:22 p.m. on January 6th, and I just finished my first screening of Everything Everywhere All at Once. Now, as I said, my initial screening was in April when it hit wide release because it wasn't playing near me in limited, and I give it a 6 out of 10. And this is my first time ever revisiting any clips from the property. I didn't revisit it until this very minute. Coming back to Everything Everywhere All at Once now, 8 months later, how do I feel? What do I think? Well, I'm wrong, I think. I think I am wrong. So I definitely, on this viewing of Everything Everywhere All at Once, enjoyed it more and questioned what mindset I was in that I didn't enjoy it as much as I did this time, the first time I watched it. Now, let me be clear. This isn't good. This one right now on the first viewing, this isn't oh God, this is the best thing ever that I've ever seen. I'm not going to fall in line with that. But also, it is a much bigger jump than I would have expected on the first time. It kind of took me over emotionally, and a lot of the points that were made in the film were hitting me more about acting with kindness as opposed to acting with not kindness, basically. And I was really kind of all in for the ride. So I liked the film more. But not only did I like the film more, I also appreciated more of the technical elements of the film, so therefore I thought it was a better film in itself. Let's talk about those. Honestly, on my first watch through, was not a huge fan of Michelle Yeoh's performance, and I don't know what crack rock I was smoking. She is brilliant in this. She is, I think I had a thing about her not being super emotive, if I can remember correctly, and I was just wrong. Like, just wrong. Not like, oh, I can understand why I thought that in that scenario. I was just wrong, and I don't know what was happening. I think the best I can say is, because Everything Everywhere All at Once is such a stimulus, it goes so hard all of the time, constantly. You are being overflowed with emotions, with visuals, with audio, constantly, a barrage of stuff thrown at you. I think I got overwhelmed in my initial screening, and I just kind of couldn't get there. It seemed I couldn't get in line with what the film was doing. But now that I have a preconceived notion, I've watched the film before, I'm able to take in more of these things that I wasn't able to on my first viewing. That's the only thing I can think of, because it is such a superior film to what I thought it was. Also, I don't know what I was thinking. I wasn't a huge fan of the action choreography the first time. And guess what? Nope, not at all. I'm a fan. So intricate, so well done. The most intricately well done thing in the film, in my opinion, which we'll get into in a little bit. But yeah, I absolutely had a great time watching the way in which even the characters interact with each other, because the way in which the violence is portrayed and shot and choreographed once again is more cartoony and kind of falls in line with this multiverse madness thing that they have going on. Super enjoyed it. Very much so. I can also say that I was a much bigger fan of the score than I was the first time, specifically in the final scene of the Everywhere section with the bagel and the learning to love fight. That was just brilliant to me, and it was just so ethereal and so intense and perfectly captured the moment of the film that it was scoring. That is something that it's very rare. Scores to me are always almost always good. But it's very rare to find a score that perfectly encapsulates the essence of a moment in the film, and I think that Sunlux does it in that scene. And actually, and this kind of ties into, well, this is both a positive and a negative. I like a lot more of the humor than I did. I thought it was super immature. I was not a fan of the humor at all on my first viewing. And here I'm able to differentiate what I like and what I don't like about the humor, because there is some of the humor I don't like and there is some of the humor I do like. I'd like to divide it into two categories. There is silly, goofy humor that requires a little more intellect, and absurdist humor. that doesn't require any intellect. I think that the absurdism here, such as, oh my god, it's so funny, he has to put thing up butt, just not being approved whatsoever, doesn't work for me. The essence of that comedy is, hey, it's funny because man putting thing up butt. And that's it. You know, in the fight scene I'm talking about specifically. On the side of silly, goofy humor that has a little bit more intricacy to it, for example, was not a fan of the everything bagel the first time. Don't know why I wasn't. That's really funny and weaves its way into the plot and has a message within the everything bagel. Everything in the world on it. All you can see is despair. I got it, and I like it a lot. So the humor was also upped for me, and I appreciated it more. In regards to things that I still feel the same about, I still feel the same about Ke Huy Quan's performance as Waymond Wong. I think he steals the show every single scene he's in, and is, I won't say by far, because I did actually really like Michelle Yeoh's performance this time and thought it was really good. But I will say I think he still is the most deserving performance from the film to get the accolades that he is receiving. So shout out to him. I guess I shout out everybody, but yeah. Sorry about that. Of course, my camera died and I had to reframe a little bit and it was not fun and I got very upset for a moment there. But yeah, the thing about this screening, it actually turned out to go super well, better than I expected. I enjoyed it way more than I expected, and I'm kind of glad that I let this watch through just be purely emotional. I didn't go into it with the intention of it being that, but I kind of just let everything wash and flow over me, and I'm glad I did because now I can understand the essence of the film, and then in my follow-up viewings, I can try and take apart more of the technical aspects of what makes the film so brilliant as people say it is. But this was definitely successful. Enjoyed it way more than I thought it would. And of course, as 24 hours moves on, maybe I will have differing viewpoints and start going a little bit mad. But as of right now, I'm gonna give Everything Everywhere All at Once a low 8 out of 10. It barely creeps up to the 8, but it's a good film and I enjoyed it. And so that is all for me for this first viewing. It is currently 2:41. I'm going to take a moment and distribute the files to my computer and stuff like that. And then from 3 to 4, I'm going to have lunch because a man needs to eat. But then after that, we are going to have a bunch of successive viewings all in a row, and that should be interesting. So the next time I will see you guys will be somewhere around 6:20. Let's see how the second viewing goes. Shall we cut to it now? All right, hello, we are back. It is currently 6:23 p.m. on January 6th, and I just watched my second viewing of the 24-hour Everything Everywhere All at Once marathon. Now, how am I feeling? Has anything changed? Has it gone up drastically? Has it gone down drastically? Is the honeymoon phase over? Is it just beginning? The questions you may be asking, and unfortunately, I have a very bland and monotonous, it's about the same answer for you. But because I was able to understand the emotional mind state that it would put me in and preemptively prepare for that, I was able to take some notes and observe certain things on a technical level that I didn't on my last viewing. So let's get into those that really stuck out to me this viewing. And the first one is, surprise, surprise, it's actually the score from Sun Lux. Again, because this is such a bombastic film in so many ways, that's what stands out to you in your first couple of viewings, right? And like I said, that song, which I think is called The Empathy Fight, something along those lines, I'll make sure that I know it for the next one, during the final battle sequence really stuck out to me. But what about the score this time that penetrated my thoughts is it is perfect. Remember in my last thing where I said, hey, that song is the perfect encapsulation of the moment that is happening in the film. It's like that for the entire movie. And the score is almost 2 hours long. It clocks in an hour 56, the soundtrack that being that. And every single song perfectly seems like it was shot, like when the film was shot, it seems like those songs belonged in the background. It seems like those shots did not exist, those scenes did not exist without those songs happening. That's how fluidly it works its way into the actual scenes of the film, which is mind-boggling to me. That's why they didn't stick out as much to me. Sometimes scores, they have a big gravitas to them. I know I said gravitas in the last section. What am I doing? But in this one, it's so smooth and fluid and magnificent, and it blends in perfectly and just adds to the richness of the film. So I have to commend Sunlux for a wonderful score that definitely stood out to me a lot more than it did the last one, and it already stood out a lot in the initial screening that I had today. I also want to talk about, in regards to the action scenes and the choreography there, the use of slow-mo I really appreciate it, because in action films films where there are action such as this one, it can be very difficult to manage slow-mo. We've seen superhero films completely bastardize it and ruin slow-mo and overuse it to the point where there's just no coming back from it, and it's just so weighing down the film. But I think that the slow-mo in this film is perfectly executed in the right moments that actually work into the story. And that's another thing that I've been observing that we'll get into, is everything really works into the story, and the slow-mo is no different, especially the shot of Jamie Lee Curtis busting down the stairway. That was just a wonderful shot, and I really do appreciate that on a technical level as well. Another thing that really came to me and I appreciated is the multiverse explanations and the verse jumping explanations. In a film that was lesser than this and less competent, the way in which those pieces of information would be delivered would be super duper expository, but that does not happen here. They are written into the scene so well that it just flows in, and it's not like, okay, well, they're just very obviously giving us a bunch of information in the everything section to just, give us a base level understanding. No, it happens when it needs to happen, and it doesn't happen, no pun intended, all at once. It is placed sporadically through the section, and even when it's the most concentrated, they do move on to something else right before it would be too much for me to take in, if that makes sense. So, great job on that. Another thing that I'd like to give a shout out is a performance that I did not talk about in my last section, and that is Stephanie Sue. I, once again, didn't really process the nuance in which she portrays this tormented soul that has, people like to call her nihilistic. I like to call it more just absolute torment of all of these things just being placed in front of you with no way of avoiding this endless onslaught of your senses, so much so that you become desensitized to everything that ever happens in the world. And really towards the end, I think in the everything section, the everywhere section, she hones in all of that rage, but a sad rage, not a mad rage. And I love sad rage performances, and she does it really, really well. There's an interview out there somewhere. I was looking randomly when I was watching this viewing of the film, and there's a place where Daniel Kwan does definitely say that there is some level of inspiration here from YouTube, and that's what needed to click for me. This is the reason why I think this resonates with my generation so much, is this is sort of embodies that crazy nature of a YouTube video, insanity, and just kind of almost randomness. But in this way, it's more calculated and methodical than in an actual just random YouTube video. But it made sense why my generation is so into this film when he said that. It just kind of clicked for me, and I don't necessarily dislike that aspect of it. I'm not super high on it like a lot of people are, but having the understanding that that's kind of what they're going for in some aspects helped me understand the mindset and process exactly what was going on in certain areas. I will say, once again, negative wise, there are still, the thing that's really holding this back for me is there are moments and parallels and just all sorts of things that are still too on the nose for me. For example, there's one part in our conversation with Waymond where he says, "I know you're a fighter," and she has her fist balled up, and then after a conversation with him, she finally lets go of the fist. The symbolism here is a little too on the nose for me. And she gets pulled back into a situation with Jamie Lee Curtis when he's like, "I can feel you pulling back," and he pulls back, and it's like, haha, we get it, but it's a little just too obvious. But that really only plays a very small portion of how I feel about this film, and it is actually surprisingly overwhelmingly positive. I had a really great time watching it once again, and I think that's a testament to the film because I've just watched it twice in a row. I only had an hour break in between, and I still found myself getting invested. And also for a 2-hour 20-minute film, give or take credits, It didn't seem long to me on the second viewing, and I was able to get through it pretty enjoyably. Had a good time, didn't bother me at all. So I'm genuinely impressed. At the end of the day, it's still going to be an 8 out of 10 for me, but I'll move it up to a medium 8 out of 10. How about that if we can negotiate that? I'll move it up to a medium 8 out of 10. I had a good time with it, and I found more things that I appreciated it, that moved it up the ladder a little bit, but not significantly enough for me to super change my tune. Maybe that will come with the next viewing, we'll see, but for right now, 8 out of 10, really good time. So yeah, that's it for this. Gonna go watch it again in about 20 minutes, and we'll see if the fatigue will start to really hit me now, but hopefully it doesn't. Hopefully I can have another 2 in the tank before I really start to slow down. So yeah, see you then. Hello once again, everyone. It is 9:21 p.m. on January 6th, and I just finished my 3rd viewing of Everything Everywhere All at Once. Now, the question is, primarily you would imagine, you've just watched the same movie 3 times in a row. Is fatigue starting to kick in? And the answer to that is no, not yet. But I can feel it coming. This one, I was still picking up new things and observing little intricate hidings, and I was also picking up things that maybe I didn't like so much and kind of still dissecting the movie on that level. But I'm thinking either somewhere after the halfway mark of this next screening or number 5 is really where I'm gonna start to have that overwhelming fatigue kick in. But so far, nothing. Let's talk about things that I picked up on and how I felt about the film. First of all, just gonna say I enjoyed it a little less this time. There were some, again, positives that I picked up out of there, but there were also some negatives that I found kind of hidden in those positives. For example, first of all, when I watched this the first time, was pretty impressed by the cinematography. Didn't really talk much about it because it wasn't enough to really jump out at me. But what I'm starting to realize is I don't think the cinematography is as great as it is that the editing is so over the top and so well done that it kind of enhances the cinematography without actually the cinematography being that brilliant. Another thing along this line that I would say about the film that I wanted to say is that I think that a thing that I didn't mention is the transitions. I'm a really big fan of the way through the editing that they transition between worlds. The swipes. There's one specific one where she does a transition where she tries to go to a different universe, but it isn't the right one, and it just shoots up and it goes and it's like an overhead view of a map, and then it moves like 5 feet or so, and it goes down, and it's her in the car with Waymond, and I think that's really well done. So yeah. but I still think that the editing enhances the cinematography in a way that it's not actually that great. And now that we're at the third viewing, I've been pretty technical and emotional for the first two. I'd like to just talk about some fun things that I enjoyed or had like a little bit of discovery with. First of all, Raccacoonie is just objectively hilarious. The whole scene, the whole universe where that is a thing is just really, really funny. I don't really have much other to say about it than that, but I think it's my favorite bit of the whole movie. Also, it was really cool to see or hear, it's actually hear, not see, don't know what I'm talking about, the smash pinky uppercut sound effect, the baseball bat hit at full power. As someone who grew up playing Smash, that was a really fun little Easter egg to have in there. So I picked up on some things along those lines that the Daniels and the sound team hid amongst their sound design. So I have to commend them on the sound design for this in doing those things. Pretty cool. Once again, kind of like a YouTube video with the essence of it, which is just super cool. In the previous segment, I talked about symbolism and how I wasn't the biggest fan of it. I'm going to adjust that statement. I'm not a big fan of the symbolism that is portrayed in the dialogue. I think it's pretty on the nose and doesn't really fit in well. But one shot made me realize that I'm actually, for the most part, there are still some outliers here and there, a fan of the visual symbolism of the film. The fact that at the beginning of the film, Joy is looking at the washer, spinning the clothes in the circular motion, somewhat as a donut, and she, at the end of the film, refers to everything as just like a circle, giant circle of shit constantly circulating, is pretty cool. And it's very understated. It's not super in your face. It's just one or two shots, and I can appreciate that type of visual symbolism, not the super in your face dialogue written symbolism. And I promise the reviews aren't formatted this way. This wasn't premeditated, but I'd like to give a shout out to another performance, to someone who I have definitely ragged on in the past on this channel, in fact, and that would be Jamie Lee Curtis. I'm really not a fan of Jamie Lee Curtis's acting in basically anything she's done. She's okay in A Fish Called Wanda. I'm sure there's another performance I just can't think of that she is pretty solid in. But in the new Halloween trilogy, I think she has been the worst part of that trilogy. I think her acting is terrible, and she really actually kills it here. I'm not gonna lie to you. I really enjoy her performance. I think her character is actually really well written in a complex way of how I make a living off of basically making enemies out of people, but the number one thing that I want in life is to be loved and appreciated. But I have to, because I don't in my everyday life, I have to put up that wall. I think it's super fascinating, and I think Jamie Lee portrays it really well, and she emotes better here and more realistically, because my problem with the Halloween trilogy is she always super over emotes, but she doesn't do that here, and she does it really well in a film where doing it overtly so could be an option because of how bombastic everything is and how over the top it is. She could have been super over the top, but there's a layer of nuance to her that I do appreciate. So shout out to Jamie Lee. Go get that Activia, baby. And I think we're gonna finish this up on a problem that I do have that I've noticed since the beginning, and it's become more and more prominent after every screening, and this is the one where I wanted to bring it up. There is a point around the hour 10 mark where Gong Gong calls in his reinforcements from the Alphaverse, and they all, come into their bodies in the world that Evelyn and Waymond are living in. And there's a basically continuous fight scene amongst all of those reinforcements. And it went on too long for me. It was too much of the same thing. The brilliant thing about Everything Everywhere All at Once that I'm starting to come to realize is, even though it's all super over the top, it never gets stale. It's constantly going, and the story and the characters and everything is constantly evolving, and that's what I really appreciate about it. But this just was just a block of just straight action scenes and quippy one-liners from Waymond and Joy. I didn't really appreciate it. Also, as a part of that, little critique, I'd like to say, hey, show the asshole. You're making an R-rated movie. Show the asshole. Just show it. Come on. It's not a big deal. Just show it. If you're gonna go all the way and you're gonna put that scene in the movie, just show it. It kind of defeats the whole purpose if you don't show it. Personally, I want to put it in the film anyways, because that's the part of the film where I started to get a little bit tired, and I feel like that final scene with the two guys who are actually, I believe, brothers who do like kung fu and stuff, which is super awesome. But I would have definitely taken that out, that scene out. But if you're gonna put it in and you're going to have one of the things being, hey, this goes up the butt, show it. Don't not show it. That kind of takes away the whole oomph of the scene. I know that's maybe a minor nitpick within a more significant nitpick, but hashtag show the asshole. And this is actually final because I don't like leaving off on a negative foot, but I want to talk about something positive, and it's going to be a running theme throughout this entire 24-hour viewing video thing. It is going to be the score. I am continuously impressed by this score. It is continuously, it's always elevating for me. It's in certain ways. Last time I talked about how it always encapsulates the exact moment. It feels like it was made to be put with that footage. Now I'm going to talk about how dynamic it is. There's like piano ballads, and there's just huge, bombastic, just gigantic, gargantuan pieces of like orchestral magnitude. Whoa! And everything works so well. The score is wonderful. Sun Lux. I've literally saved the score to my phone on Spotify, put it in my like songs. I never put entire albums in my like songs. I like to just pick out the songs, but I did that with the score. It is just so good. So ultimately right now, as of the third screening, we're basically halfway through. It's going to get an 8 out of 10 for me. And here's where it differentiates. And this is what I'm gonna do just to give you an idea of how I'm feeling about it. It moved down the list a little bit for me. It moved down in quality just a tad. It's going to still be an 8 out of 10, but for example, on my best of the year list, it was sitting at number 10 and it moved down to number 11. So not that much of a decrease, but I did lose a little bit of the magic on this viewing. And I don't think that it's because of the repetition, because I haven't felt the fatigue yet. Maybe I could be wrong, but we're all humans. We all make errors in our judgment. I will let you know if I feel that way on the next screening. So yeah, I will see you at 1 a.m. For my 4th screening review. I'm a little bit worried about how this will go. All right, it is 12:14 a.m. on January 7th, and I have just finished my 4th viewing of Everything Everywhere All at Once in 24 hours. How do I feel? How are you feeling? Probably both good. Now, the question is, I said maybe halfway through this I would start to feel a little bit of fatigue set in, and that is true. I'm still finding new things to enjoy and appreciate and love about the movie, but I am unfortunately starting to slow down a little bit, and for example, my notes are becoming more and more short and bluntly stated, and I'm not putting as much effort into making them eloquent. But there are some things that I do have to say about this. Ultimately, this is more on par with my second viewing. I feel basically the same way about those two. The third viewing brought it down a little bit for me because I started to see more of a pattern of weakness that I wasn't really into, but this one raised it up a little bit. Let us talk about why. I think this is the viewing where I've finally really started to combine my emotional attachment to the film with my actual critical eye and mesh them together on this one and allowed that to happen. For me, the third act, not the third part, but the third act is immense. It is by far my favorite part of the movie. Basically, everything that happens from the monologue of Waymond when he's talking about being kind on. That gets me super emotional, and I don't really get emotional at films, but every single time for 4 movies in a row, I know what's going to happen. I know the monologue that's going to be delivered. I know the music that's going to be playing, but all of those elements manage to make me feel something inside, feel pretty emotional, and I have to commend the movie for doing that. It is just an immense spectacle, both visually, audibly, and just completely overall. Everything is working so well. It's so cohesive. It impresses the heck out of me. I'd also like to go back to a statement that I said on the last viewing dialogue that we're having. I know it's technically me just talking, but I like to think you're here with me. I want to retract somewhat the statement about the cinematography. I was kind of really caught up in the editing on my 3rd viewing and how well it was done. And I undermined the cinematography a little bit. I still do not think the cinematography is as good as the editing. But I do think I undervalued it because of how well the cinematography needs to be at a certain level in order to work that well in tandem with the editing. So I do have to give props for that. For example, I think the editing is awesome in, again, the 3rd act where they make the thing and they show the portal to the other realm through the fingers, and they move up in the bagel, and the bagel appears, and that's the editing, right? But that shot of the fingers is just as important, and that is a cinematography technique. So once again, frame within a frame, whatever. Really, really do have to take back the level at which I disrespected the cinematography. Really, really, it is good. It is good, and I enjoy it. I still do think the editing is a little bit better, but the cinematography is still pretty A1, I will say. I'm also a fan of the way that they incorporate bits into this film. If you've noticed, I just mentioned it this one time, but I've very much not mentioned the hot dog universe for a reason. I think we're gonna take one of these discussions to, or at least half of one, to just take that apart, but now's not the time. But I'm very impressed in the way that the bits build off of themselves. They never take up too much time to get old, and they're always adding something to the universe that is being portrayed, and I think that's so cool. Perfectly paced, perfectly done, perfectly executed. I'm a fan because sometimes you can add too much to one or neglect the other, but the Rakakuni universe, the Singer universe, the Singer is the only one that's a little bit less than I would like it to be, but the actor universe, the hot dog universe, they're all there and they all help contribute. They also help contribute to the story. The bits are there to be funny, but they're also there to help add additional dimensions to what's going on. And I guess it's also time for me to once again praise Michelle Yeoh's performance, one that I had, again, in my initial viewing in April of 2022, was not a huge fan of, but now I've completely flipped 180, 100%. The way in which I think her physical acting in this film is brilliant. I did not even take that into consideration on my first 3 viewings. I think this one really stuck out to me in the way that she transforms from this kind of like slouchy world burden on top of her with absolutely no outlets, kind of just overwhelmed by everything, to this strong, proud, prideful person who can take charge of a situation and treat it in the way that it needs to be treated. And her smile and her whole persona changes. And speaking of persona changes, final thing that I'd like to say in regards to the acting when it comes to Stephanie Hsu and Ke Kwan, when they're switching between their alternate universe selves to their primary universe selves, they really do switch in all aspects. Their complete body language, as I said, changes, and it's super impressive. A lot of people would just change, or actors would just change one aspect of their performance and be like, okay, well, I'm a different person now, and they really commit to putting themselves in that other person's shoe or shoes, and I appreciate that a lot. So ultimately, this is going to stay at an 8 out of 10 for me, but remember when I said it moved down from 10 to number 11? Well, it moved up from number 11 to number 10, and it's closer to number 9 than it was before. So this is about it for the fourth viewing. I think I've said what I wanted to say or needed to say necessarily. And we are going to be taking an hour break from 1 to 2 a.m. And then 2 a.m. we're back on the horse for our next viewing. I'm going to get some much needed caffeine from some Coke that I do not drink often, but 24 hours of this it's definitely going to need it, and coming up with new things to say, I'm going to need it. So yeah, we will see if the fatigue is starting to kick in more. I'm predicting that because I'm going to get some caffeine, this one will be fine, and then 6 and 7 are going to be a major struggle, but let's see how it goes. Hello, it is currently 4:13 a.m. on January 7th, 2023, and I have just finished my 5th screening of Everything Everywhere All at Once. How am I feeling? The exhaustion is starting to kick in a little bit. I predicted that the caffeine would help me for this screening. It kind of did, kind of didn't. I think it helped me not really slow down at a pace that I would have originally if I didn't have it. I was able to still take some notes and discover some new things about it. In regards to the film itself, Everything Everywhere All at Once, I feel like my opinion is starting to stagnate. I feel like we're not going to be moving up from this solid 8 out of 10, or down for that matter, because I feel like I've gotten most of what I need to get from the film, and now we're just kind of putting that into place, reassuring everything, if you will. But I do have some new things to say, and let's talk about them. I don't usually like to start off my analysis with negatives necessarily, but I feel like this one is one that I wanted to get out of the way first, and it is that I think I'm starting to see a weakness in one of the more main characters, and that is Gong Gong. I think that I would have really appreciated having more context on him, having more of an arc with him, having more backstory as to why he was the way he was and how he came to be the person that he was. And in a 2.5 hour film, you definitely can do that. And they did it superbly with all of the other characters, but they just kind of didn't do him as much. And he is a part of that family, and I would like to have a better understanding of how he plays into those dynamics. But alas, I don't, and that's okay, because once again, as most of the negatives I'm talking about, it doesn't attract enough for this film for me to be super upset about it. But that is something that I've observed this viewing process that I wish was better. Now, splitting off from that and going into characters, since we were technically talking about a character there, I have to make the transition and segues in any way that I can. I actually really found an appreciation this viewing for the minor characters, such as Harry Shum Jr.'s Chad from Rakakuni, Jenny Slate's dog mom character, and Bill Whiff as the guy who hits on I'm a little tired, as you can tell. I can't remember the name of the protagonist. The protagonist is obviously Evelyn, when he hits on Evelyn at the laundromat. I'm keeping all of this in so you can really see my spiral at the laundromat. I think all of them perfectly did what they were supposed to do. They executed their roles, as small as they may have been, in the best way possible that they could have. And I appreciate that. It's not like they got these small-time actors for these small-time roles. They got people who have featured heavily in films and TV shows, and they were great at what they did. So yeah, I want to commend those those smaller roles, the actors playing those smaller roles, for really taking the interest and investing themselves in it and doing it to the best of their ability. Top tier acting. I think this is a big point that I want to talk about, that this came to me during this screening, a little bit in the last one, but really reinforced itself in this screening, and that is the whole googly eye thing is fantastic and really interesting to me, and because in that last scene, when the bullet turns into the googly eye, and the googly eye is a way in our culture, adding eyes to something helps or an inanimate object helps personify it. Personification obviously being giving inanimate objects more humanoid characterizations and things like that, whether it be by description or things like that. And the fact that that symbolizes the term for Evelyn to start viewing people as people and really opening up her eyes to the humanity of everything, as opposed to just trying to handle things through brute force and trying to take on the tactic that Wayman does throughout his everyday life, is really good. It's leagues better than any of the other symbolism that's going on in this film. And I kind of blew my mind a little bit. That's the only thing about this film that I will say blew my mind, is that level of symbolism portrayed in that way. And they didn't do it over the top. They just let it happen in the way that it does. You pick the scene and the bullet and turning into the smiley face, and you blowing the googly eyes and blowing the googly eyes all over the people. It's insane, and it's so freaking well done. And then I guess just a little small thing to cap it off. I really appreciated, and I guess just a little small thing to cap off this much shorter review than the past 4, is the rock scene. Something I appreciated about the rock scene this go around is the way in which the dialogue was paced on screen. I super duper appreciate the fact that the way the pacing of the dialogue being presented makes it seem like an actual conversation. I know that might seem like a little thing, but in other films I've seen, you can't even get actors themselves to act like they're having a conversation and not talk over each other. So being able to do that with 2 rocks that are not having a conversation, it's just the words on screen, I like that a lot. And I think it's impressive. I lied. I'm gonna talk about one more thing, because it is just a very minor thing, and it is a negative. The caution tape thing is weird, very confusing. They have caution tape out in front of the auditor office all the time, and yet everyone walks through it and past it in order to get in the building, and no one does anything about it or even is really paying attention. So what's going on there? Kind of confusing. That being said, as I said, this viewing didn't affect where it is on my ranking scale. It's still gonna be an 8 out of 10. I still enjoyed it a lot, which is crazy that I didn't really get super bored on my 5th viewing. And although it did not affect me to the way that it did in the first 4, that final 3rd act did get to me emotionally somewhat. It wasn't as intense as it was in the first 4, but it did actually get to me. So that really does say something about the film's prowess in that manner. So we're gonna watch the next one, starting at 3, 2, 3, 4. Oh my god, it's almost 5. Starting at 5, we're gonna be watching the next one, and I will check in with you folks after that with the penultimate review. All right. Hi, it is currently 7:18 in the morning on January 7th. I have officially been up for 24 hours plus, and boy oh boy, not exhaustion of the film itself after my 6th screening of Everywhere everything everywhere all at once. This isn't a bit, by the way. This isn't, oh, he's playing up his tiredness because it's funny. Just that tired. After my 6th screening, I'm not having fatigue of the movie, actually, surprisingly. I'm having fatigue in life, in real existence of my body functions. Yeah. So that's how I'm feeling right now. All the caffeine in the world can't save me, but we do have some things to talk about still, surprisingly. Once again, as I said in the last one, I really didn't feel like this was going to budge on a critical scale for me. I felt like I'm pretty solid on an 8 out of 10. I feel like a good 8 out of 10, middle of the road, like an 85, 86, 8.5, 8.6 is where it's going to be from me. That's what I feel. And yeah, once again, my opinion didn't change, but there were some more things I wanted to talk about, so we're going to talk about them now. Psych, it's only one thing that we're going to talk about. We're talking about the one scene or pack of scenes that I have not yet really tried my hand at and dissected whatsoever. I think I've touched on basically everything else, and I did mention it once, but I never really touched on the hot dog fingers saga, and that's because it has always been the most confusing thing to me. I didn't really know what to feel about it the first time I watched it in April, and on my second viewing, my first viewing of this ordeal, I still didn't know what to think about it, and I didn't want to talk about it until I knew what to think about it, and the penultimate thing would probably be the best time to do it. So let's talk about it. What does it accomplish? Does it accomplish anything? Does it warrant being in the story? Yes and no. I like what it represents. I enjoy the fact that it's showing Evelyn kind of relaxing and letting go in a way into intimacy in a certain way, because she can't portray it in that moment with Waymond, but she's able to give way to this more romantic side of her that she doesn't really show, and bond with their partner in that way, because in this universe she is with Jamie Lee Curtis's character. So I think it achieves in showing once again another side of Michelle Yeoh and learning how to become a person, essentially. Do I think that it's still juvenile and stupid and probably could have been replaced with something else? Yes, but it's obvious that the Daniels just wanted to have fun. So although at first view I was definitely against this whole hot dog finger thing, I can confidently say that I am for it after 6 times watching it over and over again. And I might as well, that's not enough to me, actually. I don't think I might as well go back to Old Faithful and talk about how much Colin loves the score of Everything Everywhere All at Once from Son Lux. He loves it a lot. What I would like to appreciate the score for in this circumstance is, hey, you know what? Wow. Love the way that the score matches up with the action scenes specifically. The way in which the score and the soundtrack seems like it was written around to perfectly accentuate the action that's going on, especially in the chapstick scene, the first action scene of the film. The way that the hits from the fanny pack and then the final click with the final beat, so masterfully done. And that's something that in this film could be tossed to the wayside because of what you are seeing. You could just toss that aspect of the score. You only need good music. You don't necessarily need that level of intricacy. But that's what separates good films from great films, and I'm starting to come around on this being a great film, especially in the score department. Also, on a more of a nerdy tangent, wow, I had initially written down a note, I love the color grading of this film. But I didn't think that was really enough to portray what I was feeling. And the reason why I didn't is because there was another aspect to it. The color grading combined with the lighting works miracles to get this atmosphere of and nail it perfectly of these locations that they're at. This grimy auditing office, or this giant barren wasteland of rocks, or anything that they're going for, or, and oh my god, the old school acting type thing. Speaking of that, we'll get to a little bit later in certain inspirations. But yeah, I think that the lighting and the color grading work so well together to portray and really display the atmospheres that are key to feeling the way that you're feeling and enhances the emotion that you're feeling while watching the film. So shout out to whoever did the lighting on this, as well as the color grading, which I guess would be the editor. And I already shouted out the editor, so shout out the editor again. And then finally, I would like to talk about something that I'm confident in saying now. Wasn't really as confident in saying it, but now I am. Well, one I was confident in saying, the other one I wasn't. Obviously, from the beginning of the film, you could tell that the whole actor path that she goes on, her alternate is definitely inspired by Wong Kar-wai, especially with the blurry, the low frame rate shots are magical, and it's just really immerses you in that type of environment once again. So I appreciate it was more, and it was much more like an homage, not like a copy, because I hate copies. I hate when something is just directly ripped. It still had its own feel of this film that we're watching now, but it's just taking certain aspects of that filmmaker's work and incorporating it into the text, or the film in this case. And then also, I think another one that people aren't talking about as much, I think there's a lot of Don Hertzfeldt in here. And Don Hertzfeldt is one of my favorite filmmakers, cartoonists. Absolutely love his work. And I think that there's a lot of, in the cartoonish darkness of this, people blowing up with confetti coming out of them, you know what I mean? So shout out to them, to the Daniels, for being able to take from people that they're inspired by, but not completely seem like hacks while doing it. A very impressive thing that most people just can't do. So, what do I think? I'm tired, I'm hungry, and this is still an 8 out of 10. A good 8 out of 10, and I'll be honest with you, it's a little closer to number 9 on my list than it was before, which is Bones and All. It's closer to that than it was before. So maybe the final screening will be the one that pushes it into that number 9 slot. Maybe I will finally hit a wall with this screening and realize that this is the best film ever made. Or maybe all of the work that I've done in these 6 viewings will be completely taken away, and I will hate this movie just as much as I did when I first saw it in April. How will you know? When will you know? Right after this. Stay tuned. Hello. How are you? Good? Better than me? It is, I think, 10:15, and I have just finished my 7th and final screening of the 24-hour period of Everything Everywhere All at Once. Did I get anything else to be gotten from the movie? Not really. Do I feel the same way that I did about it from the last time we talked? Yeah. Am I so exhausted that I can't think properly? Also, yes. Is this going to be the shortest section of all? Undoubtedly. Will I come back to you after I have gotten rest like a human should probably do, and not this? Yes! I guess if I could give you one thing that did interest me is, and I am actually being genuine about this, I like the whole thing. There's a constant thing that's being said throughout the film by multiple characters that but it's mainly joy. That there's only a handful of moments where things start only like finally make sense in the world and in your world, and I think that is very interesting. There's these certain moments throughout the film, like she's towards the beginning, she our main character, who I totally know the name of and I'm not forgetting right now, Michelle Yeoh's character is I can't believe it, Evelyn is watching the TV in the laundromat, and it's one of those moments where just everything seems right. The music kind of evens out and just like smoothly goes along, and she's watching it. It seems like everything's right, and there are a lot of those moments throughout the film to show that, hey, this flip of nothing matters to nothing matters, which I kind of like the flip of a cynical nothing matters to a positive nothing matters at the end in one of their final conversations before the third part all at once at the end of everything. I really like that. I hope that made a lick of sense. I will be coming back to you later today after I sleep a little bit to talk about what I learned, how this experience affected me, and what I'm really feeling about everything everywhere all at once. So yeah, good night.
Hello, it is 3:20 p.m. on January 12th, and obviously what I said at the end of the last clip was a lie. I went to bed right after, and it was really difficult to get back on my sleep schedule. Plus, I had other videos that I was making, so it was a little bit odd to do that, but that's not the reason why I haven't come back to finish this video yet. The reason why I haven't come back to finish this video yet is I haven't stopped thinking about everything everywhere all at once since I stopped watching it. Now you could be saying, oh, of course you haven't. You watched it 7 times in a row. It must be ingrained into your psyche permanently now. And while that may be true, there is another reason why it has stuck around for me so much. And that is that the themes that are talked about in this film really have resonated with me on an emotional level. The ability to really value the small things is something that I have taken for granted recently, and after my 24-hour marathon, I've really instilled in myself to take the time and relax and view everything around me as beauty, take in all of the magnificence in the world. I know this sounds super corny, but it really has. It's also made me think about family and stuff like that, and appreciate the family that I do have left on this earth more than I did before, which is, again, the most it possibly could be, but that I thought it could be, but apparently there was more. It has affected me on a very intense level. And yes, again, maybe it could be because I watched it for 24 hours straight, but I don't think that's the case. As one of my favorite critics ever of anything, Jacob Geller, once said, the thing that really hits home with a video game for him is when it stays with you after the playthrough, not during the playthrough. That's what really determines the greatness of a video game. And I could argue it's the same with a movie. It really is. There's so much to observe and take note of while you're watching the film, but if it's a truly great film, you'll be thinking about it days and days after. I am completely in agreement with him on that point. And this whole week, I have thought of, in regards to media, basically nothing else other than this film. And so surprisingly, I do have a final amendment to make to my rating, and that is that Everything Everywhere All at Once is actually a 9 out of 10 for me. Yes, it is that great. And to conclude this whole, what did I learn from watching this film for 24 hours straight? Well, first and foremost, I learned that I was wrong. That I had the wrong viewpoint of the film and I didn't take it in as well as I should have on my first viewing. Two, I learned that maybe probably don't ever do this again because it took me 3 straight days to get my sleep schedule back intact. And three, I learned again what I said at the beginning of the video, to really take in everything around you. Appreciate the small moments. Appreciate the small things. Appreciate the everyday things that happen to you that you don't often stop and recognize. I know smell the roses is a stupid, corny phrase, but it does hold some validity to it. I've learned to do that a lot more in the past 3 or 4 days. So yeah, Everything Everywhere All at Once is a 9 out of 10. It's as great as everyone says it is, and I have gone from not liking it all to absolutely loving it. And I think that concludes this journey. Thank you so much for coming along with me. I very much appreciate it. Next video, I will be tackling the entirety of the BoJack Horseman series. I will be watching it in a week. That will be coming out in 2 weeks from today. And then after that, the next week, I will have a Sundance video up. So thank you so much. I appreciate you tuning into the first video. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will talk to you in the next one. Goodbye.